Hello, everybody. Happy Monday morning. Hope yours is going well. We've got another Seahawks video to get to today, but first, we just hit 4,270 subscribers to the channel. I want to give a shout out to all the subscribers, and special tip of the cap goes to the channel members, especially new channel members Stephen Norman and elite channel members Brandon McKell, Hasher for MVP, Salacious Crumb, Rye Guy, Brendan Nelson's Haircut, VGK Tigers, It's Hoof, TVO, Austin Roberts, Scott Todd, PH Glass, Arfman, 12th Man, Eli Bennett, Cassio Feria, Samoan, JoJo, and Rep the 206. And today we will be talking about something that doesn't really exist. But the problem is some people think it exists, or at least they think it exists in a different way than it actually does. We're talking about the salary cap. And the salary cap in the NFL has something in common with Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny. It doesn't really exist. Okay, that is an oversimplification, but here's the thing about the salary cap in the NFL. You can pretty much always work around it if you need to. There is always a way out of any salary cap situation, and you can always create money. And I've talked about this before on this channel. I've made videos on it before, but I think now is a good time to go over some of these points because in light of the Julio Jones rumor and me and other Seahawks fans talking about bringing in a guy like Fletcher Cox, I know some people want Stephon Gilmore from New England. These three players, especially when Seahawks fans bring them up, a lot of people just say, we can't afford that. Why are we even talking about that? We don't have any money. I want to explain why this is simply not the case. And even if it is technically the case at the moment, it is roughly somewhere between trivial and simple to make it not the case. You can always create cap room. All right, let me show you what I'm talking about. And hopefully by the end of this video, you'll understand why talking about acquiring players like Julio, Cox, or Gilmore makes sense. Okay, let's use Julio Jones as an example because he's the guy that everyone is salivating over right now as Seahawks fans. Or, well, not everybody, but a lot of people. All right. So, Julio Jones, he has a cap hit in 2021 of 23 million, 23.05 million. All right. Now, if you trade for Julio Jones, how much money will your team then have to pay Julio Jones? We can't know the exact answer because whatever the answer ends up being, it's going to be part of the negotiations between the two teams. When the Falcons contact a team to try to trade Julio, they will say, we don't want to pay Julio anything. We just want to, we'll take the dead cap hit because we literally have to, but we want you guys to take on the whole rest of his salary. And the other team, whoever they are trying to trade Julio to at that moment, will come back with, no, 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 you got to take on X amount of his cap hit for 2021, which makes the cap hit a little more edible for us. So we can't know exactly what Julio's cap hit would be for any team that trades for him. But logic dictates it would be no more than 15 million because you have a cap hit of 23 million and you have a dead cap hit if traded for the Falcons of just under 8 million. So really you're looking at 15.3 million at the most, I think. And the Falcons are not being very realistic with their demands right now. I have to believe they're going to take on at least some of that salary for 2021 in order to make the deal a little more appetizing. The Falcons are asking for the moon right now, which is understandable, but it's unlikely to result in them getting what they want. But they'll get what they need if they end up going through with the trade. So whatever the 2021 cap hit for the team that trades for Julio will be, it's going to be somewhere between $0 and $15.3 million if my understanding is correct. Okay, so how much money do the Seattle Seahawks have under the salary cap right now? Because This is the first point that some people argue against trading for Julio on. We don't have the money in 2021. Okay, you go to the Spotrac page for Seahawks contracts, and it's a little hard to sift through. It's a little hard to make complete sense of because some of these numbers are off by a million or a little bit more than that, and a lot of these players are going to get cut. Like these guys are not going anywhere. We know that. Wilson, Wagner, Brown, Adams, etc. But as you go down this list, you are going to find some players who are not going to be here when we make our 53-man roster. You're going to find some players down at the bottom who are going to be here in some capacity, even though they're crossed out. So this list is not perfect. The numbers on it are not perfect. But as of right now, looking at just the top 51 players on this team, Spotrac says about 4 million. Now, they have the number for Tyler Lockett wrong, per my understanding. This number should be 8.05 million, not 9.25. So that would create an additional 1.2 million in cap room and get this number up to about 5.2, 5.3. But this only accounts for the top 51. So you're not accounting for the last two roster spots or the practice squad. So it's probably about a wash. So I think it would be reasonable to say that if you take everything into account, as of right now, the Seahawks have about $4 million to play with for 2021. And $4 million is about what you would expect to need for injuries mid-season because you're going to need to call players up. You're going to need to sign players off of the free agency market. So as of right now, yes, we are roughly capped out. Well, what can we do to create cap space? There's the big one. You can restructure Russell Wilson. I know we talk about this all the time, but it will continue to be true, and this team will continue to not utilize this option until they need to. But if you restructure Wilson, you create almost $12 million in additional cap space in 2021. And let me say one more thing before we move on here, because I get comments sometimes that say Wilson had better approve of the team giving him a restructured contract. He does not need to. The team is free to restructure Wilson's contract at any time without his permission or even his knowledge. So don't think that the reason why we're not restructuring Wilson is because Wilson doesn't want to. It's not getting restructured because the team doesn't want to, because they don't see the need for it yet. But if the team wants Julio, then they would see a need for it, and they would be willing to do it, because I know there's some concern about Wilson going forward. Realistically, this team is married to him for at least 2 more seasons, and probably 3, because no matter how you slice it, it's a huge dead cap hit to eat. So making it a little bigger is not really doing that much bad to you. So if the team feels like they can acquire a piece that will help them win a lot, like Julio, like Cox, like Gilmore, they will definitely be willing to do that. And Wilson is not capable of stopping it, nor would he want to, because it was part of their agreement that they could restructure him at any point without him even giving his approval. So he understands that the team might have to restructure my deal, and he was fine with it, which he should be, because it doesn't really have any effect on him and his money flow. Okay, so that alone gets you about 12 million in cap space to play with, plus the 4 million for injury coverage. So that gets you most of the way to the 15.3 million. Then you have the Jamal Adams extension. Now, I went over this in the past, what a Jamal Adams extension might look like. I made a video about it before. But if you take a look at the other contracts of big-time safeties in the NFL, you could probably get this cap hit down from 10 million, where it is now 9.9 million, to 6 million or 7 million if you wanted to. Honestly, you could probably make it whatever you want it to be. You could make it 1 million, you could make it 20 million, but realistically, you could probably get it down to 6 million. Again, the cap hit does not really matter that much to these players as long as they're getting good guaranteed money, because cap hit is not literally what the player gets that year. It's just how much of their money goes on the cap for that year. So it doesn't affect the players. The players don't mind if they take a pay cut by cap hit because it's not a pay cut to their pocketbook. So restructure Jamal, that gets you another $3 to $4 million, and boom, you've got enough room for Julio Jones. Other things you can do would be to restructure Jason Myers. That can save, I think, 1.2 million against the cap this season. Bobby Wagner, restructure him, could save 5 to 6 million. I don't want to restructure Bobby because I really want to make sure we can let him go next year and save a lot of money doing it, but it is on the table. And then you can keep going through and you can find little drips and drabs of money you can save throughout this salary cap list. You have guys like Al Woods, you could let him go and pay him either nothing or 750,000. You're saving either 2.4 million or 1.7 million. You can possibly trade Benson Mayowa for like a conditional seventh round pick. And I think you save like 1.3, 1.4 million because we don't have a huge need for Mayo at this point. You can, what's another one here? You can, where is he? Where's Trey Flowers? Yeah, Trey Flowers, you can let him go and save over $2 million. These are little ways to create a little extra cap space without losing anything we're going to miss terribly. So, yeah, the cap will take care of itself. There are all kinds of ways to create cap space. I'm not saying all of them are super comfortable. I'm not saying I would be jumping up and down for joy for doing it. But if you have the opportunity to get a piece that can help your team a lot and help your team win a Super Bowl when you're in the state that we are in right now as the ACF as a franchise, you do it. You do it. You try to win that Super Bowl, you win the Super Bowl, and then you come back the next year and you're like, okay, we got to deal with all this crap now, but it's okay because we won the Super Bowl. It was worth it, right? Look at what Philadelphia is going through right now. And, obviously it's no fun. That team is in shambles right now, but it was worth it because they won a Super Bowl. Now, that's just 2021. And as I just walked through, it's almost easy to create enough cap space to bring in Julio. Extend Adams on a backloaded contract, restructure Wilson, you're there. You can even do a few more things on top of that. But some people have brought up 2022. Bringing in Julio Jones would be a tricky thing to maneuver when you take a look at what's going on in 2022 with the salary cap. Granted, fair enough. So Julio's contract in 2022 has a cap hit of about 19.2 million. That's a big cap hit for a player who will be 33. I would also say that it's probably the last year he would be in Seattle if we traded for him because he has a pretty solid out before the 2023 season. So after 2022, you don't have to worry about it. But honestly, I don't think you really need to worry about it that much in 2022 either. And I've been over this before, but let's do it one more time. I've already gone through the 2022 books for the Seahawks, and if you want to fit in a player like Julio, it won't necessarily be comfortable, but it will work. So let's run through these numbers. This is a list of every cap hit the Seahawks have on the books right now for 2022 that I believe that they will keep on their books. Wilson, 37 million. Lockett, 10 million. Poona Ford, 9.7. Gabe Jackson, 9. And the list goes on. These are all the cap hits we have on the books for 2022, all the way down to guys like Stone Forsythe, the rookies we just drafted, guys like Tamorrion Terry, Connor Weddington, Brian Mills. It's every cap hit we have. Okay, it's 38 players in total, and the subtotal is 123 million. So the 38 players who I expect to keep under contract in 2022 cost 123 million. Now we have our dead cap hits. These are players that I expect to not be here in 2022 despite having a cap hit on the books. So there is going to be some dead money to eat. Wagner, I think, will be gone because that saves over 17 million, but there will still be a cap hit of 3.75. Mayoa has a cap hit of about 750,000, and I don't think he'll be here. Nick Bellore will be 600,000 dead. And then you have some of these void years with Gerald Everett, Ethan Posick, 3 million total, and then Cedric Ogbuehi, I think he'll be gone next year. No, I'm sorry. Cedric Ogbuehi also has a void year, 350K. That gets you to do 131.5 million. So every player on the team right now who's going to be on the team in 2022 and the players who I imagine won't be or have some sort of dead cap hit, 131.5 million. Okay, now we take a look at extensions that we know are going to come. I already talked about the Jamal Adams extension. I think his second year cap hit is going to be about 13 million. Again, I'm expecting a backloaded contract. It is very reasonable, and I've had some people in the comments say, I don't think it's reasonable to say that Adams's cap hit in 2022 will only be 13 million. I've looked at other big safety contracts. I've looked at other big defensive player contracts. It is completely reasonable to have a cap hit of 13 million in 2022 for Jamal Adams. It will get bigger as it goes on, and that's not great, but that's a risk you take when you're trying to win a Super Bowl. So Jamal Adams, 13 million. DK Metcalf, I said 11 million. Again, his overall contract value is probably going to be about 20 million per year. But that first year of that extension is probably going to be a lot less than 20 million a year. I said 11. If you look at the contracts of other stud wide receivers who got, 100 million or 90 million or, in that range, like Amari Cooper, Michael Thomas, a lot of them had that first year cap hit much lower than the average annual value. So 11 million is totally reasonable. That gets you to 40 players. I also estimated our 2022 draft picks got to 6 million for 7 players. And obviously that'll change a little bit depending on where we draft, but not by that much. So we're looking at about 6 million, and that gets us up to 47 players. The subtotal at this point is 161.5 million. All right? Remember where the salary cap is projected to be in 2022. I've talked about this before. All right. 200 million. Okay, that is a conservative estimate. The NFL says it could be as high as 208 million. But if it's 200, which I'm going to conservatively assume, our estimated cap room after accounting for extensions, dead money, and live money is $38.5 million. Julio's cap hit is $19.2 million. So we have more than enough room to roll Julio into that. Now, if you want to include our outgoing free agents we might want to bring back, okay, sure. We have guys like Quandre Diggs, Gerald Everett, Brandon Shell, Ahkello Witherspoon, Ethan Posick that we may or may not want to bring back. We also have some of the lower level guys like Ryan Neal, Rasheem Green, Brian Monet, Will Dissly. I could see all of them coming back on min plus deals. I said 1.5 million. I think all 4 of these guys would be willing to come back on a 1-year deal, paying about 1.5 million. Michael Dixon is another guy, 2.5 million in that first year cap hit. He's probably going to sign a contract that is a record for a punter, but it's probably going to be about 2.5 million that first year. So if you roll these 5 contracts into consideration, you get to 30 million in cap space. So rolling in the Julio contract, whatever it may end up being, because it may not end up being 19 million. Salary cap stuff in the NFL is voodoo sometimes. It could be less. I guess it could be more. It's hard to know, but it's let's say it is 19 million for 2022. You can still fit it in. You could fit it in and still re-sign a player like Gerald Everett. You could re-sign a player like Diggs. If the cap goes up to 208 million, you could sign Diggs and Everett. Now, you're not leaving a whole lot of money to go out and get other stuff. You still have to build your practice squad, but you might be pretty content with where you are as a team if you acquire that big piece, Julio, Cox, Gilmore. But the point is, you can afford it on paper. You can clearly afford it on paper. You may have to make some sacrifices. Like obviously we're going to have to sacrifice Wagner, but there could be other sacrifices. But you gotta break some eggs to make an omelet. And honestly, this is not that many eggs to break. I just showed it to you. You can keep most of your team together. You can bring in some draft picks. You can extend your studs that need big contracts. You can even retain some of your stud free agents who are outgoing or bring in new ones. And you can still bring in Julio Jones or Fletcher Cox or Gilmore. Salary cap in the NFL is a meme. Yes, it exists. Technically, it does constrain what you can do. But the question is not, can I do this thing? The question is, what do I have to do to make it so I can do this thing? And with all that, I'm going to get out of here. Peace out. Go Hawks. This team is trying to win now. It is. And if you have to give up some stuff in the future in order to try to win now, then your team needs to do it. Your team is either all in or all out. You got to go all in. Now, if you're somebody who thinks that Julio Jones would honestly not help this team win that much, then okay, I think you're wrong, but that's at least arguable. That's defensible. I can respect that, but the money, don't worry about it. It'll all work out. And I'm gonna get out of here. Go Hawks.